Hello, everyone, and welcome to the California Book Award ceremony. My name is Gravity Goldberg, and I am very pleased to serve as the chair of the Commonwealth Club's 94th Annual California Book Awards jury. Since 1931, the California Book Awards has honored many of the most important voices in American literature. Among them, Joan Didion, Ishmael Reed, Amy Tan, Hector Tobar, Yi-Yun Lee, Khaled Hosseini, as well as many more. We give awards in 8 categories: fiction, first fiction, nonfiction, juvenile, young adult, poetry, Californiana, and contribution to publishing. The criteria we apply to judging are pretty simple. The winning books have to have been written here in California and published in the past year, and they have to be breathtakingly and unforgettably good. As you will see, this year's award winners are all that. They reimagine our histories and our futures. They range through time, from the 1840s to the 1940s to the 2020s. They travel from the most intimate interior landscapes to globe-traveling container ships. The books explore the meaning of place and displacement and the shifting importance of inherited family legacies. These are the books we will continue to talk about for years to come. Now, before we start the awards, a few very heartfelt thanks. First, to Commonwealth Club President and CEO Gloria Duffy, whose support and encouragement make these awards happen. Thank you to Sean Burmeister, whose hard work and dedication to the awards make the jury's work possible. And the entire staff of the Commonwealth Club. The Commonwealth Club is housed on the exquisite Embarcadero in San Francisco, and I encourage you to check out one of their live or online programs. And especially thank you to the late Dr. Martha Cox, longtime juror and founder of the Center for Steinbeck Studies in San Jose State University, whose generous gift enables us to give cash grants to each of our award winners. Finally, special thanks to our Book Award jurors. They spend months reading, discussing, and debating the hundreds of books that are submitted for award consideration. And then they have the tough but vastly rewarding job of selecting the best of the best for these awards. So many thanks to Christopher Chen, Mary Alice Daniels, Roy Eisenhart, Peter Fish, Kelly Gilbert, Mary Ellen Hannibal, Gordon Jack, Evan Karp, Natalie Kankan, Maya Maker, Scott Saul, Lauren Silver, Mary Tauger, and Dora Wang. And now, on to our award-winning books. Our first category is nonfiction, to be presented by Mary Ellen Hannibal.
Hi, this is Mary Ellen Hannibal from the nonfiction jury of the California Book Awards. Our finalists this year are Frostbite by Nicola Twilley, When We Sold God's Eye by Alex Kudros, 12 Trees by Daniel Lewis, On the Move by Abram Lustgarten, and A Map of Future Ruins by Lauren Markham. And our winners are Frostbite by Nicola Twilley and 12 Trees by Daniel Lewis.
First of all, a huge thank you for this recognition. It means the world to me. California is my adopted home. I actually grew up in England, but I love this state with the zeal of the convert. Also, and I did not know this until I started the research that eventually became Frostbite, California is by far and away the coldest state in the Union. After the initial boom of the gold rush fizzled out, California built its fortune on perishable produce, which requires a lot of refrigeration. By the mid-1920s, more ice was manufactured in the Salinas Valley than in the entire city of New York. Still today, there's more refrigerated space here than anywhere else in the United States. and the United States has by far the most refrigerated space of any country in the world. So, in a lot of ways, a book about how refrigeration has transformed what we eat, where it's grown, what it tastes like, and how good it is for us and the planet is actually a book about California. I'm also extremely honored to have been included in a long list of writers whose work I deeply admire. I have to just quickly shout out Lauren Markham, one of my fellow finalists for this award, who is not only a wonderful writer and human being, but also helped shape a very early iteration of my refrigeration writing when we were both fellows in the inaugural UC Berkeley Food and Farming Fellowship. The list of thanks is long, way too long for a short video, but here in California, I can't thank the Americold crew in Southern California enough for welcoming me into their world. Thanks, of course, to my team at Penguin Press and also to the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation and MIT Knight Science Journalism Fellowship for their support. And thanks, above all, to the Commonwealth Club for this recognition.
Hi, my name is Dan Lewis. I'm thrilled to have received the silver medal for the California Book Awards from the Commonwealth Club for this year's competition. And I have a number of things I'd like to say about trees. I think we're all on a journey of some kind or another. It might be an internal journey, it might be an external journey. And writing this book really has been a global odyssey for me because I've traveled the world, and I hope the book travels the world in much the same way that I did in the course of researching and writing it. Trees are important, really not just in some locales, but in every corner of our planet. And while thinking about a tree project, it occurred to me that trees really are a mirror unto ourselves. The things that they're threatened by are the things that we're threatened by. And by the same token, their talents and their habits, perhaps, are things that we share. And our lives are commingled. And in a way, there are instructors, I think it's accurate to say. And walking through the Huntington Botanical Gardens, where I work as a research curator in the library, and surrounded by a couple hundred acres of botanical gardens, I thought these trees all have very different stories to tell. They have their treeness in common, but they are not the same kinds of trees. So this book tries to bridge the scientific with the cultural and the literary, and to provide guideposts for people who are perhaps comfortable in one of those two worlds, but not both. And in part, that's really just how I think about the world. I'm a humanist who knows a lot about science, but in terms of takeaways, one key one is simply that the natural world needs our attentions, plural. And that's an evergreen notion, to use a tree term. But it's not just to save the trees, really, but to save ourselves, whether it's through reflection or poetry or patience with ourselves and with each other, and also not neglecting the importance of taking appropriate scientific action. And ecological action as well. You know, we all have things we love, and almost everything I love fits under the canopy of trees, which is very much a broad and graceful place. You know, birds and rivers and swamps and of course time and its many registers, which is really an essential component, of course, to our lives and to the lives of trees, even though we're on different time scales. And of course, my fellow humans who have been both obstacle and opportunity for trees. Thank you very much.
My name is Mary Taher. I chair the fiction and first fiction subjuries. I've been a juror here for the past 7 years. The finalists for the gold medal in fiction this year are Colored Television by Danzy Senna, All Fours by Miranda July, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and James by Percival Everett. And the gold medal in fiction goes to Percival Everett for James. In James, Huckleberry Finn is retold from the perspective of this escaped slave, Jim, now called James. He is educated, eloquent, and thoughtful, although frequently and hilariously forced to pretend otherwise when in the company of white people. The book mirrors and then deepens the strength of Twain's classic, the mix of humor and adventure, the headlong pace and suspense, and the powerful evocations of the Mississippi. James is a brilliant achievement. We welcome Percival Everett.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for the award. I'd like to thank the judges. Winning awards is nice, but the important part to me is being considered in the conversation with the other books that are on people's minds. And I'm well aware that if any committee had met on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday, another book might have won, and that would be perfectly fine. But I'm happy to receive this. Of course, there's a few people I like to thank. My editor, Lee Boudreau at Doubleday, my publisher, Bill Thomas, um, my publicist, Michael Goldsmith, and especially my agent, Melanie Jackson. None of this happens without Melanie, and nothing at all happens without the support and friendship of my wife, Danzy Senna. And I like to thank my sons, even though they don't seem to care at all what goes on in my career, Henry and Miles. Thank you again.
Our silver medal in fiction goes to Rachel Kushner for Creation Lake. Part thriller, part study of human history and anthropology, Creation Lake follows a ruthless American spy for hire under the alias Sadie, who infiltrates an anarchist eco-collective in France. The novel examines corporate land grabs and the destruction of natural resources, as well as the ruminations of the collective's mysterious mentor who advocates not revolution, but a return inward to the ancient past. As always, Kushner's prose is masterful. Our next category is first fiction. This category honors California authors who have not published a book of fiction previously. Our finalists for the gold medal in first fiction are Beautiful Days by Zach Williams, Your Presence is Mandatory by Sasha Vasilyuk, and There is a Rio Grande in Heaven by Ruben Reyes Jr. The winner of the gold medal in first fiction is Sasha Vasilyuk for Your Presence is Mandatory. Your Presence is Mandatory spans a time period from World War II until the present day conflict. It's the story of how a captured Jewish Ukrainian soldier survives a 4-year period in Nazi territory and why he keeps his war history a secret from his family for 40 years. It's a fascinating look at World War II from a Ukrainian perspective and at the trauma of surviving a totalitarian regime. Written in vivid and detailed prose, Your Presence is Mandatory is a riveting saga. We welcome Sasha Vasilyuk.
Hi everyone. I was born in Crimea, the California of the Soviet Union, and I had a dream of becoming a writer as a young girl. But when I found out that we were immigrating to the real California, I was almost 13 and devastated. How was I supposed to become a writer in a language I barely spoke? For the following years, as we landed in the Bay Area and I went through public schools and university and eventually became a reporter for several Bay Area newspapers, I kept feeling that the stories of California weren't mine. I was just a guest here, a visitor. So for my first novel, I wanted to tell a story that only I could tell, and that meant a story from my homeland. This multi-generational novel, inspired by my family, pays tribute to voices nearly lost to silence. I began working on it after I took a trip to the war zone in Ukraine, where I realized that when no one is there to contest history, it can easily become weaponized. Our only way to combat this is through stories, and I don't mean just books, but also privately in our homes, when we pass on information, witness accounts from one generation to another. I'm immensely humbled and grateful that the California Commonwealth Club has decided that a book set in a faraway, war-torn place deserves this recognition. As the 13-year-old who once landed in a California ESL classroom feeling quite despondent, it is honestly a huge honor, and I've never felt as embraced by my state as I do today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Chen, and I chair the poetry subjury for the California Book Awards. I've been a juror for a few years now, and I wanted to thank my fellow subjurists, Natalie Concon and Mary Alice Daniel. The finalists in the poetry category for 2025 are, in alphabetical order, Sarah Ghazal Ali for Theophanies, Victoria Chang for With My Back to the World, Hanai Jonas for Softly Undercover, Brandon Logans for Phosphine, Cindy Juyoung Ok for Ward Toward, and Nathan Osorio for Khalida. And the gold medal goes to Sarah Ghazal Ali's Theophanies. In a collection that entwines creation with a pointed and powerful critical reconstruction of matriarchal figures from Abrahamic traditions, Ali's formally diverse poems move between English, Arabic, and Urdu. Over the course of the book, these poems synthesize a striking mix of lyricism and political discernment, merging the emotional intensity of the ghazal with a long reflection on the anguish and unrecognized subversive authority of embodiment. I liken my name to apology, Ali writes in a poem entitled Ghazal on the Day of. I wield judgment like a snapped beak and shovel night from my abdomen. Congratulations, poets, including all of our finalists. These were all fantastic books. And here are a few words from Sarah Ghazal Ali.
Hello, my name is Sasha Vasilyuk, and I'm the author of Theophanies. I have tried and tried to come up with the words to express just how grateful I am to have won gold in the California Book Awards, but there's no language for just the depth of astonishment and gratitude that I feel. All that I have is thank you. That's the only expression I've got. Um, I When I first signed the contract for the book back in 2022, I wrote down on a piece of paper that all I wanted for the book was for 5 people who weren't related to me to read it. So to be here today, to be celebrated in this way just surpasses all of my wildest expectations. I'm deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you to my press, Alice James Books, and everyone there who has tirelessly championed the book, who, were the first people to see the book and to say yes to the book. Thank you to my family, to my mother, to my husband, who has made every dream of mine his own. And thank you to my daughter, for whom everything is written. Thank you to booksellers and librarians everywhere who are doing the tireless, necessary work of getting books into the hands of people who need them. I moved to California at 16 as a very angry and confused young woman who didn't know who she was. I later went to college at UC Santa Cruz, which is where I first dreamed and imagined that I could be a writer, that I could make a life as a writer. Santa Cruz is where I wrote the first poem that would lead me to this book. It's a book that I very much think of as a Santa Cruz book. And thank you to the Commonwealth Club, to California, my home, for celebrating Theophanies. It's a book full of women. It's a book that is obsessed with women of scripture and women who are gone too soon, and with the matrilineal line. And so I want to say ultimately too, thank you to all of the women who made me and all of the women who are yet to come.
The silver medal goes to Cindy Juyoung Ok's Ward Toward.
Thank you so much to the club for supporting so many books, including in our little corner of letters of poetry. And thank you to the judges for their time and for their care and their conversation. I just got done teaching. I teach poetry, and it's amazing what poets hold. The frustration of wanting to write something and not being able to find the right tone or the right word or the right feeling, and understanding that gap is meaningful, or this kind of the role of the reader and the writer, or to understand that language is the place where so much normalization happens and occupation starts, but also a place necessary for liberation. And I think that I feel just so grateful to be a reader. And when I read, I find words feel activated and exciting, and that they last in my read and change each time I read them. And so to be read then is such an honor, and it's a strange, exciting development. to be read like this, especially. So thank you so much, and congrats to everybody. And it was such a beautiful year of books, and I'm very happy to have a tiny little part in it.
Hi, my name is Gordon Jack, and I am the chair of the Juvenile and Young Adult subjury. I'm pleased to announce the finalists in the juvenile category are Pearl by Sherry L. Smith, A Map for Palestine by Maysa Odeh, The First Week of School by Drew Beckmeyer, Stella and Marigold by Annie Barrows, and Sourgrass by Hope Lynn. And the winner is Maysa Odeh for A Map for Palestine. When a young girl struggles to find Palestine on a map, she turns to her family for answers. Each of their stories helps her understand the history of her homeland and that sometimes people live in countries and sometimes countries live in people. With evocative art and lyrical prose, A Map for Palestine probes the question of what and where we can carry inside us. Let's hear from Maysa Odeh.
Hello everyone, my name is Maysa Odeh. I'm the author of A Map for Palestine, illustrated by Aliaa Betawi. And I want to say thank you so much to the Commonwealth Club for awarding us the California Book Award. I have to be honest and say that receiving an award like this, at a time like this, is incredibly bittersweet. But I cannot deny that this type of recognition, this type of honor will help A Map for Palestine reach more readers, more teachers, more librarians, and hopefully help counteract the racism and dehumanization that has brought us to the moment that we are witnessing now, which is a live stream genocide for everyone to see. This story is about a young girl who couldn't find Palestine on her map at school and turned to her family members to answer some deep questions about her identity and where she comes from. And that girl was me growing up here. I went to Palestine for the first time when I was 16. And I want to share with you that I was surprised to find a beautiful place, not so different from California, and some really friendly, welcoming people, not unlike people here in our home state. I want to tell you that despite what you may have heard, Palestinians, we're not heroes, we're not superhuman, we're not monsters. We're just regular people that want to live in safety with our children. As a person who writes for children, I feel a responsibility to tell you that it's not complicated to say all children deserve our protection. It's not complicated to say that a genocide that primarily targets children is wrong. And if you've been silent up until now, let today be the first day that you speak out against what you see happening while you have the chance. It is not too late to be on the right side of history. Thank you again for this honor.
The finalists in the young adult category are When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson, Kill Her Twice by Stacey Lee, Everything We Never Had by Randy Ribay, Lunar New Year Love Story by Jean Luen Yang and Lei Wen Pham, Shen Lende by Darcy Littlebadger. And our gold medal goes to Randy Ribay for Everything We Never Had. Everything We Never Had is a poignant illustration of how we're all expressions of history. Through 4 different generational stories of Filipino-American boys, Randy Ribay shows how history reverberates through families, affecting fathers and sons for better and worse. In eloquent prose, Ribay details the struggles that will resonate with readers young and old. And now, here is Randy Ribay.
Thank you to the Commonwealth Club World Affairs and the Awards Committee for selecting Everything We Never Had as this year's Young Adult winner. I want to thank my agent, Beth Phelan, my editor, Namrata Tripathi, and my entire publishing team at Kokila Penguin Random House. Special shout out to two organizations in California. Watsonville is in the Heart out of UC Santa Cruz, and the Tobera Project. The research of both of these organizations was essential to the writing of Everything We Never Had. And I want to thank, of course, my family, the Ribays and the Seafrieds, my wife, Catherine, and my son, Felix, without whom this book wouldn't exist, since it started with me asking myself the question of how do I be a good father? It means so much to me that this story is being recognized in the state of California. I moved to the Bay Area almost a decade ago and found myself surrounded by other Filipino Americans in a way that was quite different from growing up in the Midwest. And that, of course, also meant that I was surrounded by the deep history of Filipino American experience, which worked its way into my writing. And, since then, my wife and I had a son, and we decided to call California home. And as Roy Recio of the Tobera Project reminded me when I spoke to him several times, Filipino American history is American history. And I hope the story honors that sentiment, and that Filipino American history is also California history. Thank you again.
We have two final categories of this year's California Book Awards. The winner for Californiana is A Machine to Move Heaven and Earth by James Tahani.
Hello, and thank you to the Commonwealth Club and the prize jury for this recognition. I'm honored to be among this year's winners and the list of titles that have received awards over the past 94 years. Most of all, thank you for recognizing the history of San Pedro Bay, a remarkable California place and home to the United States and the Western Hemisphere's busiest container ports. A Machine to Move Ocean and Earth tells the story of this place, once a massive estuary, Mexican Rancho Grant, and center for indigenous life, and why it would become the Port of Los Angeles in the early 20th century. Even though I grew up around the port and grew up hearing much of its lore, its backstory surprised me. The book examines the bay's development through national and international events, westward expansion and the lasting mix of Hispanic and Anglo societies, the political conflict over slavery that would provoke the Civil War, and the rise of Pacific imperialism and global trade. The Port of Los Angeles is famous as an artificial harbor, a triumph of engineering over nature, but it was history and context that overcame the obstacles and allowed human technology to prevail. Yet the heart of the book is its characters, people who surveyed, argued, schemed, and sued to shape the bay's future. I owe much to them and to their archival documents. This includes power brokers in Washington, D.C., like the Secretary of War Jefferson Davis, local Southern Californians Manuel Dominguez and Phineas Banning, and San Francisco residents like Collis Huntington, George Davidson, who was a path-breaking federal scientist, and Molly and Edward Ord, future Union general in the Civil War. These characters left behind a legacy that is a foundation of our times. The transformation of San Pedro Bay into today's port transformed the United States and how Americans live. The same is true for humanity world over. The Port of Los Angeles is a symbol of a connected world, and of California as a linchpin for global society. But as recent events remind us, a connected world is not without problems. I hope readers will discover that history provides a way to understand and think through these problems. As we work to determine what our moment in time may ultimately mean, California's past and the tradition of California letters have much to offer as a guide. I am grateful to the Commonwealth Club for supporting that mission. Thank you so much for this award.
And contribution to publishing, Terminal Island, published by City of Angels Publishing and the Los Angeles County Library.
Thank you all for this wonderful recognition. On behalf of Angel City Press at the Los Angeles Public Library, I am extremely honored to accept the 2025 Gold Medal for contributions to publishing. Terminal Island, Lost Communities on America's Edge is the first book published through the Los Angeles Public Library's acquisition of Angel City Press, and it perfectly embodies our shared mission to elevate and preserve the rich and often overlooked stories of Los Angeles. Written by Naomi Hirahara and Geraldine Natz, with a foreword by William Deverell and an afterword by George Takei, the book tells the moving story of a vibrant Japanese-American community on Terminal Island in the Los Angeles harbor, their rise, their forced removal and incarceration during World War II, and the ultimate destruction of their community. This book brings together more than 230 rare images, many from the library's own photo collection, and dozens of first-hand accounts that might otherwise have been lost. Naomi's original research, including Japanese language sources from the era, gives this story the depth and dignity it deserves. This recognition is not just for a book, it is for the power of libraries, archives, and local publishers to make history visible, especially in the communities where that history is at risk of being forgotten if not erased. This book is the perfect example of Angel City Press at Los Angeles Public Library's goal of amplifying diverse voices while preserving and promoting the unique stories of Los Angeles, especially when they otherwise might be too specific or niche. Thank you again to the California Book Awards for honoring this work. We are so proud to help ensure these stories and others are not only remembered, but available, cherished, and shared for generations to come.
Congratulations to our medal winners and to all of our finalists. Thank you for joining us in the celebration of the depth and breadth and creativity of California literature. And as always, happy reading.